Jordan, welcome to Blow. How are you, mate?
Good, thanks, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. And you have to tell us a bit about yourself, because when we got the CD, I wasn't familiar with any of your work. So tell us, where you're from and how you got into playing music.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, I guess it's my very first work, so that's one of the reasons you might not have heard about it. But look, I originally grew up in Canberra, now residing in Melbourne. I've lived here for about 10 years now. I was part of a big exodus from the ANU School of Music in about 2011, 2012. Fantastic jazz course there where I studied. Probably with a bunch of musicians that you might know, many of whom live in Sydney now. But yeah, kind of just made the move over to Melbourne to pursue my studies. Just been doing the muso thing here ever since.
Fantastic, and I guess you hit the composing world, really hit it pretty strong, because this is some really strong compositions on this CD. Tell us a bit about the composing side of it for you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, look, it's kind of like, stepping my toes into many different new waters of composing, band leading, etc. But I guess this album felt like the right time to kind of channel my compositional efforts into like a bigger project. It was about 2020 when I started writing. And I honestly think it just comes from having collected enough musical influence over the years that the time felt, that I felt I could produce something kind of honest and interesting,
Tell us a bit about some of those musical influences.
For sure, yeah. I mean, they're very varied and very eclectic, which, I'm sure you kind of got the sense of listening to the album. That's kind of all over the place, which is it's an aspect of my musical personality I think I wanted to kind of express. But in that sort of period around when I began writing, around 2020, it was a big Pat Metheny group phase. In particular, Pat Metheny's album, The Way Up, which is this epic sort of progressive orchestral cinematic jazz or something, I don't know. But that album left a really big mark. Also, just some completely different influences was an album called Saria 2 by Icelandic bassist and composer Skúli Sverrisson, which is this sort of beautiful, ethereal, textural music. And also Nick Barch Ronan, another Scandinavian composer, whose music is this sort of layered textural groove music. So I guess a lot of textural influence from that album, which comes out in Lattices as well. There's a whole bunch, and they're all kind of different, so it makes it a bit of a weird melting pot of influence.
It's Matt McMahon here, Jordan. Welcome to the show. It's really interesting thinking about what your performing history's been leading up to this, because you've obviously, played the instrument well. I'm sure you've been playing a whole bunch of different things. What kind of gigs and performances have you been doing up till now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're just as kind of random and eclectic as all those influences. I mean, I've always been sort of a doubler, like someone who plays bass guitar and double bass, just about equally, I think. I mean, I don't really favour one or the other these days. So, yeah, there's, acoustic jazz on the double bass a lot. I've played a fair bit of like salsa and Afro-Cuban music where I'm on electric bass, pop stuff, Brazilian music every now and again. It's kind of goes everywhere. But I really love just playing a bunch of different things, I don't consider myself a specialist as such.
In some ways, too, if you're inspired by The Way Up, Metheny himself is someone who's got so many different flavours flowing through his music, and in that piece, that's, as you said, it's a monumental work, and it goes through all kinds of phases that are bits of minimalism and then very dense kind of harmonies and more expansive sort of Latin influence sections, isn't it? It's like a whole history of music or something in that piece.
Yeah, totally. It's cool that you're familiar with that one as well. And, in Pat Metheny's music, the Brazilian thing is really prevalent. The Afro-Cuban thing is kind of there as well. So he's sort of, I guess him being one of my, my main influences and idols. It's like he's produced this jazz-adjacent thing from all of these influences that he's synthesized, which I really sort of aspire to, I guess.
Is that the reason for the two guitars on the album, possibly?
Yeah, I love guitar. I'm kind of a frustrated guitarist myself.
I think most people are.
Yeah. It's why it's popular. Why everyone plays guitar.
And how did you go about choosing the musicians on the? Was it guys you've been playing with a lot, or you just sort of sat down and thought, yeah, these are the guys I want on my record? And how did that work out?
Yeah, I guess I mostly, pretty high up on the list was to choose musicians who I knew and were friends with and who I'd played with a little bit. So Darren Ferrugia, who is an amazing drummer, was one of the first people I had in mind. And I played with him in a few different contexts, like some sort of funkier groove contexts. And he's just someone who plays the drums with amazing precision and consistency, but also versatility. And I think just due to the number of different places that this music had to go, I really think he was a pivotal choice in choosing someone who could do all those things, who could play like a convincing kind of Brazilian bossa nova groove and then polyrhythmic funk groove. So there was, Darren Ferrugia, Darren Archer, great piano and keys player who I'd played with in a couple of things. My good friend Harry Tinney, who was also a Canberra expat. We played together a bit before. Hugh Stuckey was someone who I haven't played with as much. I'm sure you know Hugh Stuckey, amazing guitar player.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, just someone I just thought I'd love to have his musical prowess in the band. And then actually the most difficult chair of the band to fill was the marimba and glockenspiel chair. Being like sort of an unusual instrument in the jazz adjacent context. And I just asked around. I followed some email trails with the help of a few people and ended up with Zila Papagiorgio, who's an amazing percussionist of all sorts of instruments, and owns her own marimba, which was a surprisingly hard criteria to fill. Yeah, and is willing to bring it to gigs and everything.
Oh, that's good, extra good.
And that's also it's an unusual combination to have the percussion thing or the tune percussion thing in ensembles these days, I guess. And when you're going for you've obviously written for it, so you sat down and thought about the sounds you wanted on the CD.
Yeah, totally. And I think that was pretty high up on the priorities of the kind of angle for this music. It was really, to a large degree, kind of based around those sounds of marimba and glockenspiel, and particularly blending glockenspiel with other instruments, like piano and glockenspiel melodies, and just loving the way those two instruments blend and sort of chime above the music.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Have you got some plans to come to Sydney and do a gig, or you got a tour in the wind, or what's going on?
Oh, I would really love to. That's just another new learning experience I'm keen to put my mind to, is figuring out how to get 6 musicians up the East Coast. So yeah, hopefully this year. We'll see what happens.
Food and coffee are always a good incentive for musicians these days, I would have thought. Food and sights.
Totally.
So, but you've got plenty of good coffee in Melbourne, so probably don't have to worry so much about that. But it's I think the part of the thing is the hang on the road. Like you said, you pick some good guys in your band to hang with too. That makes a big difference with a band. You can you can keep it together a lot easier if the guys aren't beating each other up.
Yeah, totally. And it is kind of just like the music as well. It is sort of an eclectic combination of musos, but like I said, they're all people I've met before and I've got along with, and yeah, it's just a really good vibe. Like everybody's brings a lot of positivity to the gigs and rehearsals, and yeah, they're all on board with the music, so it's cool. It's a cool combination. Fantastic.
Well, we might. We've played a couple of tracks. We played From the Rooftops and Skeleton Key. What would you like us to play to see you on your way today, Jordan? It's been great to talk to you, and hopefully when you come to Sydney you can get in touch and come in and meet us in person in the studio. Yeah, I'd love to. And look, yeah, great to meet you, I guess, to phone meet you, Dan, and to meet you too, Matt, and thanks a lot for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
You're most welcome.
Yeah. And as far as the track, there's been a little bit of radio airplay so far, but I think one track that might not have gotten played is number 2 off the album, called Anthem for Another Decade.
All right.
Which, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, great to meet you, Jordan, and hopefully we'll see you in Sydney before too long, and we'll get you in the studio.
I really hope so. Thanks, Dan.
Okay. All the best.
All right. Thanks, mate.
See ya.
See ya.
Like